Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the session today. We are going to talk about the new announcement which has been made by the GMAT around the GMAT Focus Edition. So I'm Piyush, I'm going to be a host today in the session. I'm going to talk a lot about how this new format really works and should you be actually taking the GMAT new format or not. So those kind of questions I'm going to basically answer for you guys today. So do stay tuned in the session and please feel free to ask any questions that you have in your mind because like there are a lot of questions which are going on in people's mind with respect to how the GMAT is gonna take up the new changes. What are the new changes? How does it affect us? So I'm gonna take up all those questions for you guys. So a very warm welcome to this session. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to take it up. So just to give a background to all of you guys, GMAT announced a new format which is known as the GMAT Focus Edition last this month itself, and this was something which technically they did not want to announce, but it ended up happening because of a slight mishap with the GMAT official guide that they launched before making an announcement, and there was a lot of discussion going around it. So they came out with this like information in a hurry in a way. But yeah, so what's happening right now is that GMAT, the current GMAT, let's call it the current format of the GMAT, is gonna stay as is gonna stay as is at least for 1 year from the time when the GMAT Focus Edition is launched. And GMAT is launching one more edition, which is called the GMAT Focus Edition. And this GMAT Focus that they're calling is basically something which is between what GMAT has as the current edition today and what they use for another test called executive assessment. So GMAT Focus is basically somewhere between these two tests, and they have announced that they will be actually going in with the GMAT Focus Edition, and they will be launching this GMAT Focus Edition later. And just day before yesterday, they came in with some timelines. So we wanted to do a video on this. We wanted to answer a lot of questions. I see a question from Adarsh about he being weak in SC and DS. Should he go for GMAT Focus? I wanted to answer these questions, but I just wanted to make sure that we at least have a timeline from GMAT, because they just mentioned very weirdly in their first announcement that it is going to be announced later in the year. It will be made live later in the year, but now they have come up with timelines. So we are going to talk about that. Aniket, very good question, Aniket. I'm definitely going to take it up. So, Aniket, if you have scheduled a GMAT for the end of May, you cannot take the GMAT Focus Edition. In fact, if you want to skip this entire video, just the summary of this video, if you want to apply in round one, you don't have an option to take the GMAT Focus Edition because it is going to be launched for testing. You can actually start taking tests only in quarter 4, which is the last quarter of 2023. So anyone who wants to apply in round one cannot take the GMAT Focus Edition. Even if you want to apply in round two, we don't recommend taking the GMAT Focus Edition, and I have my valid reasons for that. So today's session is not just going to be about some basic information that you will find on the internet. As you might have seen many of my videos, I take a lot of videos around timing strategy, test taking strategy, and I have 10 years of experience about the GMAT industry, how it really works, and my understanding is always focused on analysis, in-depth things which people generally don't tell you. So we are going to focus on that, but definitely we have to quickly give an overview of what has changed. So let's quickly look at the official announcement till now. So I'm breaking down the official announcement in two parts. So current GMAT and GMAT Focus Edition, I'm going to show you both on the screen right now so that you can actually see and understand the difference between the two yourself. So in the current GMAT, as most of you know, there are 4 sections, but 2 sections are basically counted in your score of 800. So verbal section and quant section are counted towards your total score. So if you see those people scoring 700, 750, 770, that's basically about your quant and verbal section only, those scores only. And the other sections like IR and AWA, these two are additional sections. They are scored, but you don't, these scores do not affect your score out of 800. Now, why is this important? You need to understand this because these 2 sections were technically neglected by B schools till now. Most of the B schools, even if you kind of hear very diplomatic comments from them that they look at the IR score and AWA score, in most of the cases they don't. They have a minimum benchmark. In some cases they don't. It's very subjective. There was no objectivity around how these scores are being used. And IR is one of the areas which is basically something which is an important skill that is actually required as an MBA student. So GMAT realized that we can actually come up with a GMAT Focus Edition, which focuses a little little more on IR. So what is changing basically is that they're actually giving now almost equal importance. Again, this exact data is not come out yet. They have not mentioned that they're going to be equal important, but importance to all the sections. But what it seems like is that the test is going to be 45 minutes long for each of these sections, and the focus is on reducing the test timing as well. And this is the official announcement which has come from GMAT. We don't know anything apart from this. Now, there have been leaks because of the official guidebook that they released earlier on certain platforms. Again, that's data coming from official side, but that's something which has been taken away from the public domain right now. So I'll definitely talk about those data points as well. But what we need to understand is that primarily, if you look at the current structure, what they are doing is they're doing away with the AWA section. Now, you can think that, okay, this is basically because it actually is not looked at by the schools. But GMAT has another reason for that. They actually require a lot of human resources to kind of assess the scores here, and they are not very, very critical. Like, they can actually test you on your verbal skills through the main verbal section as well. And in fact, most of the people did not need to even prepare for AWA. And in fact, for that matter, IR also was not as important, because quant is something where you learn all the quantitative skills, and IR is just an extension of that for most people. So the GMAT has just done away with the AWA section and just focused on DC sections. So definitely the short test is going to be shorter. Okay, I have a question from Priyankar. I have started my prep. What should I do? Continue with the current GMAT, Priyankar. No need to worry about the GMAT Focus Edition, not until the end of this year. Not until even the mid of the next year. Again, there are certain conditions in which we will recommend people to take GMAT Focus Edition, but anyone who is starting their prep right now should prepare for the current version of GMAT. That's something that you need to understand. And I have valid reasons for that. One of them being that GMAT Focus Edition is just a subset of what is tested on GMAT today, basically. Okay, so your preparation should not be affected. Now, I'll come to all those conclusions as well slowly. Now, this is an information which has basically come up just day before yesterday. So I'll just take a slide back. I think there is just a typo in that. So I edit those eight points as well. But the idea is that this is the information around the timeline that GMAT has come up with yesterday, day before yesterday. So let's look at the timeline. So earlier they mentioned that they are going to launch this later this year. They did not mention exactly when it's going to happen. But now they have come with some timelines that GMAT Focus, this GMAT Focus Edition, again, I'm using the GMAT Focus Edition. This is the new format of the GMAT which is coming in, guys. So those of you who have just joined, understand GMAT Focus Edition is the new format of GMAT which is coming in. So they will start sharing the resources for this anywhere in the next couple of months, like not April, May or June of 2023 is when they will launch the GMAT Focus resources. So most likely they'll be launching an official guide, new official guide, which, by the way, they launched by mistake without making the announcement of GMAT Focus. And this official guide is actually having a lot of structure around the GMAT Focus, a lot of clarity around that. So you will have the official guide with you. The registration for GMAT Focus Edition will start from Q3 of 2023. What that means is that the only registration is happening. You cannot take this test yet. So the date that you need to focus on is this date. So when can you actually go ahead and take the GMAT Focus Edition? You cannot take it before October 2023. That's what you need to understand. You cannot take the GMAT Focus Edition before October 2023. Now, what that means is that anyone who wants to take the GMAT Focus Edition cannot apply to round one schools in the US, cannot apply to round one schools in Europe mostly, cannot apply to round one schools in India as well. In fact, in India, many of the B schools also have their round two in the month of October. So it will be difficult for you to even apply for round two for Indian B schools. So anyone who is looking at applying in round one is someone who is going to be not benefiting from GMAT Focus Edition. You cannot simply prepare for the GMAT Focus Edition. So the GMAT Focus Edition starts in October. That means we are talking about a 6-month window from now. So anyone who wants to take the GMAT in the next 6 months, by the way, anyone who starts their prep for the first time prepares for the GMAT in 4 to 5 months itself. So you cannot simply take the GMAT Focus Edition. You should be preparing for the GMAT current edition. Now, one more thing which you need to understand is that when the GMAT Focus Edition comes in, it is not gonna be the go-to format right away. It's not like they are gonna take away the current GMAT. The current format of the GMAT is gonna stay. Now, they have not mentioned the exact timeline of that in their recent announcement, but in their previous announcement, they mentioned very clearly that they are gonna keep the current GMAT for at least 1 year for people who are preparing for that current format. So what that means is that, again, I made a star mark over here when I mentioned till Q3 of 2024. My understanding is that whenever the testing of the GMAT Focus starts, they will give you 1 year timeline from then. So quarter 3 2024, till then you should be able to take the current GMAT format. But there is a little bit of ambiguity around how they have communicated that information. So it is possible that you might be able to only take it for 1 more year from the date of registration of GMAT Focus. Again, that clarity has not been given. So in worst case, it is still going to be there for the first half of 2024. So anyone who is preparing for the current format of GMAT, what you need to understand is, number one, you are you can easily take the test for another year. So even if you're investing your energy and time into it, you don't need to worry about it. The test is going to stay for another year at least, so you will have your chances. You don't have to worry about rushing your prep. You don't have to worry about, okay, if I actually prepare for it and I don't get to see the don't get to take the test, then why am I putting in the effort? That's not going to happen for sure. Don't worry about it at all. And GMAT scores are valid for 5 years. Even the current GMAT scores are going to stay valid for 5 years. So your scores are going to be valid. A lot of people are asking, Piyush, with the new format coming in, will my GMAT score not be valid? The current GMAT score, will these schools not consider it later? What if I'm an early entry student and they won't consider it later? Nothing like this is true. If someone is telling you that, it's a myth. Don't believe in that. GMAT scores are valid for 5 years, irrespective of whether it's the current format or the GMAT Focus format, which is coming in. So be rest assured about that. Now, if you look at all this, what you need to understand is that whether you should go for GMAT Focus Edition or not is a lot more dependent on this question, whether you should apply in R1 or R2. So whether you should apply in R1 or R2 is a question which you need to understand and answer. Now, in this video, in the description, we have covered a different webinar, a different in details discussion around this. So I'm going to attach the link to the webinar in the description for this. You guys can check it out later on to get a more detailed understanding. But at a very high level, what you need to understand is that there is a huge difference in round 1 and round 2 when it comes to the chances of getting a scholarship. When it comes to if your profile is not very unique, it's very general, or your profile is too unique as well, like very unique but not maybe the most looked after or sought after profile, then you need to apply in round 1. Because if there are people who get into the B school with similar profiles as you have, then obviously in round 2, if you're applying, your chances of getting in goes down. All right. So again, round 1 and round 2, technically acceptance rates do not differ a lot if you go by statistics, but based on your profile, depending on your profile, it can actually differ for you. But what definitely differs is the number of people or the amount of scholarship which is offered between round 1 and round 2. In fact, there are a lot of these schools which also have an early action round, which actually allow you to get a straight interview call without definite interview call, irrespective of a GMAT score in your application, if you are putting in the application at the right time. So if you're looking at any early action round or round 1, you should not focus only on GMAT Focus Edition. You should focus on the original GMAT. Now, moving on to what has changed. So this is again an information which is leaked through official guide. So what basically happened was that GMAT started selling the current version of the official guide on Amazon. They listed it on the Amazon, and in that version they actually had plans in place for GMAT Focus Edition. So there were a lot of information which was presented over there. But since this announcement was not made, to make sure that students don't panic, they took off that book from Amazon. But there were people who were able to take some snapshots. So whatever information I'm actually sharing is technically not official announcement, but it's most likely going to be true in the actual GMAT. So what is the difference basically? So what is the difference? So at a high level, the number of questions are going to change significantly. So in verbal, they are reducing the number of questions from 36 to 23. As you can see on the screen, let me just zoom it a bit more. So you can see that the number of questions in verbal has decreased by 13 questions. Number of quant questions have increased by 10, and IR questions have actually gone up. So they are going to have IR section. They are going to call it something different, data insights or something like that. So it's technically not IR, but data insights. In that, there are 20 questions, and all 3 sections are going to have 45 minutes assigned to it. But what we need to understand is that GMAT Focus Edition is a subset of current GMAT, because they're not including any new type of question in the GMAT Focus Edition. So let me just take you through another slide for that. So currently, if you see in GMAT current format, you will see these three sections tested: SC, CR, and RC. Okay, most likely what's going to happen, again I'm using the word most likely because this is not an official announcement, this is based on the leaked information through the official guide. Most likely what's going to happen is that SC is going to be left out in the current in the GMAT Focus Edition. So they are only going to focus on CR and RC over there. They are not going to test you on sentence correction. Now the second thing which is happening is that currently quant has problem solving and data sufficiency, both type of questions. Now there was a person who was saying, others were saying that I'm weak in SC and DS sections questions, should I wait for GMAT Focus Edition? Now many people are thinking that SC is taken out. That might be true, most likely is true, but and also they're thinking that DS is also taken out, but that's not the case. DS is just being reassigned to the IR section. So the GMAT Focus Edition will basically have only PS questions in quant. The 21 questions which were there, which are there, gonna be all PS questions. Earlier there were 31 questions, and out of these 31, around 15 to 16 questions were PS questions and 15 to 16 questions were DS questions. So in a way, the percentage of the number of PS questions is going up, the weightage of PS questions is going up, because most likely in the second section where the DS section is included, again there's no official announcement, but we are expecting about 7 to 8 questions of DS to be there. That's my guesswork, basically my experience. So 7 to 8 questions is what we are expecting versus 21 questions of PS. So yeah, DS is being played down on, definitely. So if DS is your weaker section, you might benefit from the GMAT Focus, and CR and RC is going to be there. And IR, pretty much the multi-source reasoning, the graphical representation, tabular analysis, those kind of questions are going to stay as is. So that's not going to change. So this is something which is basically happening overall. Now, what you need to understand is that if you look at the current version, you are preparing everything here. You are preparing for all three areas. So basically you are over prepared. So in a way, these two are definitely covered over here. PS is covered, DS is covered. So you don't have to worry about when the GMAT Focus comes in. If you want to take the GMAT Focus, the day it kicks in, you can right away start taking the test. You don't have to worry about it a lot. That's what you need to understand, guys. That current version, you should be preparing for that. You should not assume that SC is my weak section and SC is going to be taken off, so let's not focus on SC. Now, some of you might think that, Piyush, isn't that the right thought process? If I'm weak in SC and I feel that I cannot do well in SC, then shouldn't I not just take the GMAT Focus Edition? Why to put my time on sentence correction? Now, I'll give you a few valid reasons for why you should wait out to take the entire, you should not be taking the GMAT Focus Edition in 2023 at all. I'll give you a valid reason for that as well. So let's first understand, should you wait for the GMAT Focus Edition? So as I told you earlier, guys, what you need to understand is round one, definitely anyone who wants to apply in round one, you guys cannot simply wait for the GMAT Focus Edition. You'll not be able to apply. And you cannot take chances on actually getting in round two, because there's a slight chance that you might not get in round two. If you apply in round one, your chances of getting in will definitely be better, at least slightly better, if not much better. So you should definitely not wait for the GMAT Focus Edition to kick in. If you're starting your preparation now, or even if you're starting your preparation in the next 2 or 3 months, like anyone who's starting their preparation till July, I won't recommend to wait until GMAT Focus Edition comes in. Focus and prepare for the original GMAT, the current GMAT, and then move. If GMAT Focus comes in, whenever it comes in, you can always take that test. All right. So any other questions around this? Please feel free to ask. I don't see questions being asked. More and more people are joining in the session, but please, guys, feel free to ask the questions that you might have. Now, I'm keeping the session very short, very quick, to the point, but I'm definitely going to answer your questions that you might ask today. Now, one more thing which you need to understand. Again, as I said, I'm not just here to present statistics or information which is available on the internet. I'm going to present you opinions also. I'm going to present you analysis as well of what has happened and what might happen. So in the past, GMAT has also, we all went through the pandemic situation, and there was a lot of uncertainty around basically how GMAT will function and all of that. And that's when GMAT actually came up with online version of GMAT. Now, obviously, they did not have a lot of time to plan for it. That was all something which was something which came into the picture all of a sudden. No one was prepared for it. So even if they tried to do their best, there were a lot of issues which basically happened with the GMAT online format. Test taking experience of people were not smooth. I was speaking to someone even today who told me that I took the online GMAT, and instead of my test completing in 3 hours, it took me 6 hours to complete the entire test. 6 hours. Imagine that. So the software is not just, it was not just glitchy at that point of time. Even today, the test taking experience is not very similar to the test taking experience of the offline GMAT. You might be thinking, why am I telling you all this? I'll come to that. In fact, when the new version of the online GMAT, basically, like, which came in basically the pandemic time around 2020, 2021, many B school adcoms took their time to accept the online GMAT scores because it was happening from home. There was a big change. You were not basically like there was concerns around the security, the like the safety of the test, whether people are actually taking it, someone else is faking it, and there were rackets which were busted also later on. So B school outcomes were actually taking time to accept it. In fact, some B schools also mentioned their concerns and sometimes gave less preference to online GMAT scores. Some B schools even mentioned it on their websites, they won't accept the online GMAT scores for a brief period of time. And even if they were not talking openly about it, because most of the adcoms are very diplomatic with their answers. So, but many B schools were actually concerned about the online GMAT scores, and we have seen, because we have worked with a lot of students, we work with a lot of students every single year. We send them to all B schools across the globe, and we saw the people having online GMAT scores being given less preference over the ones who were having the offline GMAT score. This is, I'm talking about the pandemic time, basically when the pandemic was there. So when the initial online GMAT was launched, so all these problems was there. Now, GMAT Focus Edition is also a new format. Now, whenever a new format comes into picture, there is always some time that will be required for it to settle. And not for you, not for you, for the test to settle, for the test to settle in the mind of the admission committee officers as well. What are the factors that you need to consider over here? Some of the important factors I'm going to highlight. The new format will definitely take some time to settle. And I think Shivani has a question related to that. So Shivani is saying, is there any chance that these schools might prefer the official OG GMAT score instead of the focus version? So I personally feel that it is going to be the case. That's my opinion again, Shivani. Aniket is right. Aniket cannot say for sure. No one can say for sure. But my opinion is that there's a very high chance of that happening. The reason why? There are multiple factors behind that. I have shown you the online GMAT thing, basically the things that happen. But there are multiple other things which will happen. One more thing which you need to understand is, like again, this point is, let's talk about this point a little later, because it will actually digress from the point. But one thing which we need to understand is that clarity on scoring is something which will take a lot of time. See, understand it this way. Till now, like GMAT has had a lot of historical data with respect to the current format that they are working in. So they understood how it works. They had a level of complexity in the test with SC, CR, RC, all those sections overall. Now, when this transition is happening, during this transition period, the biggest problem is this transition period. So there will be people who have the old GMAT scores, as in the current GMAT scores, who have taken the GMAT in the last 5 years, so they're taking it now as well. Their scores are valid. So they have to benchmark that performance with the other test performance, the GMAT focus performance, and the skill set tested are very different. So they're taking like if they take out SC, let's assume that they're taking out SC. So if they're taking out SC, then obviously a lot of things change around that overall. And you have to understand it this way, that when SC is taken out or DS is taken out, one thing which comes to the mind is the test will become easier. So they have to adjust their scoring algorithm as well. So because of this, the clarity on the scoring, whether that scoring is the right scoring or not, is something which will take time. Because if they continue to use the same scoring algorithm, same parameter to score people, then obviously people might score higher on the GMAT Focus Edition. Now, if that happens, then obviously the benchmark scores will be something which adcoms will not be able to understand. When the adcoms will see suddenly higher scores coming in for GMAT Focus Edition, they will be not willing to accept those scores. They might have their own concerns around it that you need to understand. So obviously the GMAT team will sit and do some changes to the platform. They might do it in the beginning also. They might tweak the algorithm in the beginning. They might make CR questions more difficult. They might make RC questions more difficult. Because at the end of the day, what you need to understand, or all of us need to understand, is that GMAT is a competitive test. Okay, it's not a subjective test. It's not like your 10th or 12th exam, right? You get 70% of the questions correct, you have 70% accuracy, and your score is 70%, you're happy. No, you're scored on percentiles. You have to compare with other students. So if the test becomes easier for you, it becomes easier for everyone else. So the value of 760 doesn't remain as 760. The value of 760 exists when only 1 percentile or 1% of students are able to get it, or less than 1% of students are able to get it. So obviously, GMAT would need to increase the difficulty level of the test in the other areas. So that's what is expected as well. In CR and RC, the difficulty level will go up. Problem solving, the difficulty level will go up. Your quant will become more challenging. Like, you might be tested on less topics. You might not be tested on geometry, but you will still have to compete with the best of the minds. So this entire time period will be a little complicated. And what we need to understand is that GMAT focus test, or the new format, is not going to start before Q4 2023, which is October to December, right? So if you look at the admission cycle, you would need to take the application submitted by January 2024, like for round 2 as well. So what we need to understand is that overall, if you look at the timeline, it is very, very short. Within 3 months, they have to sit, improve the test, make it reliable. All those things have to be coming into picture. Now, obviously, GMAT has an amazing team. I'm pretty sure that they will be doing their ground. They are doing their groundwork as of now. They have done their groundwork, and they'll continue doing that. And it will actually be a great test. But there's always that possibility, that factor with how it will play with students, how students will perform on it. So the main person that is concerned in all of this is the admission committee officers. So they will have a hard time understanding the GMAT Focus Edition. So my understanding, my conclusion is, you should not be laying your bets all on the GMAT Focus Edition. Even if you are applying in round 2, you should not lay all your bets on the GMAT Focus Edition. Prepare for the current GMAT in 2023 entirety. If you want to take the GMAT Focus Edition, it is live, go ahead and take it. But don't just rely on it, because clarity on scoring will take time. And one more data point that we need to take into picture is that official guide of GMAT is usually easier than the actual test, even for the current format. Like, even if you score a 80% accuracy in the official guide, most of the people, many people come to me who say that I'm scoring a 80% accuracy or more in the official guide questions, but when I take a mock test, my score is less than 50 percentile. I see many people telling me that 50, 60 percentile is what they're scoring after getting 80% accuracy in the official guide. So official guide is generally way easier than the actual test. And what you need to understand is that the main thing that they're launching initially before Q4, mostly they're launching official resources with official questions and all. So unless you have a lot of mock tests to kind of see what kind of difficulty level of questions are coming in, there's a very, very little time to kind of adjust to the changes that are happening. And one more thing which we need to take into account is that the new format of GMAT Focus, like the GMAT Focus Edition, might favor Asian students. Now, why am I saying so? The reason I'm saying so is, you look at it this way. Earlier, quant used to be about 50% of your overall score, right? It had 50% importance. Now, quant and IR, both require almost similar skills. So both now account for 2 sections out of 3. Right? So it is about 66% weightage now for quant and IR. So obviously, people who are good at quant and IR, I'm saying Asians are good. I'm just trying to generalize the thing. I'm not racist over here. I don't mean the other people are not good in quant. I'm just talking about people who are good in quant. And generally, we have seen GMAT has also shown, the data of GMAT also shows that Asians generally do well in quant related sections. So there is a high chance now that the weightage of quant and IR is going up, the new format might favor Asian students. Now, is this a good thing or bad thing? Think about it. It's not a good thing, because even today, if you look at a non-Asian student or an American guy versus the Asian guy, you need to basically, as an Asian student, you need to always have 30 to 40 points more than the other people. Like if their score is X, you need to have X plus 30 to 40, even in the current format of the GMAT. Now, as things go to the GMAT Focus Edition, there's a possibility that it might favor Asian students a little more. It might mean that the score requirement might go up from Asian students as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty around the GMAT Focus Edition, how it will play out. And since the testing is not starting before August of 2023, I don't recommend taking the GMAT Focus Edition or laying your bets on the GMAT Focus Edition. So what is my conclusion? My final conclusion is that you should focus on preparing for the current version of GMAT. And since the current version is a superset of what is tested in GMAT Focus Edition, you will anyway be prepared for the GMAT Focus Edition. So right now, prepare for the current version. And if you're weak in sentence correction, if you're weak in data sufficiency, when the GMAT Focus Edition comes in, you can definitely take the test as an additional thing, as a safe buffer, but not your main target. Your main target should be to ace the current version of GMAT, because there's a very high chance that adcoms are still gonna prefer the current GMAT scores much more for at least the 2024 intake. All right, guys. So that's my conclusion. I know I have like done a monologue mostly over here. I have not taken a lot of your questions, but please feel free to ask me any questions. I'm going to take up the other questions in the poll. The Priyanka says the credibility of current edition of GMAT would be higher than GMAT Focus for B schools. Yes, Priyanka, you got it right. That's what I was trying to come to. How about adding one more section in adaptive format, keeping the entire test more difficult? I believe the Focus Edition is gonna be little more difficult. So again, Aniket, the it's all subjective. You understand it this way, that when you're talking about a competitive test, the competitive test is not competitive because of the format of the test. It is also competitive because of the people who take it, basically. So if the same set of people are taking the GMAT Focus or the current GMAT, the difficulty level is gonna almost remain the same. It is possible that if you compare individual elements, that CR might be slightly easier in the current GMAT, it might become more difficult in the GMAT Focus. That might be true. But at a broader level, the GMAT Focus Edition and GMAT current edition will remain at the same difficulty level. Let me put it that way. But yeah, the other way of looking at it is that if you really want to differentiate between two students, like, and you want to understand who is very smart and who is average or is above average, then if you use like easier topics to test those people on, then obviously you have to make the questions more challenging, basically. But if you're testing them on complex topics, then you might still work with easy and medium questions and still be able to differentiate between them. I hope you were able to understand this. So what I'm trying to say is that if a topic is easy to understand and you're keeping that as a benchmark to test people, then you have to play with the difficulty level of the questions. You have to make questions more tricky. But if you test on complex topics, you can still make the questions simpler, basically, to judge between two students, because the topic itself is complex and everyone will not be able to understand it. But at the end of the day, the difficulty level remains the same, because both the factors, the complexity of the topic and the difficulty level of questions, cancel each other out, like, or balance each other out. I hope that helps. Okay, so I don't see any other question, guys. So stay tuned for more videos on GMAT Focus Edition. As more and more information comes in, we are definitely gonna bring in more updates for you guys. And by the way, just an additional information, since IR is going to become a very important part in the GMAT Focus Edition, the GMATWhiz team has already started working on the IR modules. And just like our quant and verbal modules have been amazingly good and loved by our students, the IR modules that we are going to bring in are going to be loved by you for sure. So our team is already working on it, and we are very, very excited. We're definitely going to roll it out before the registrations for GMAT Focus Edition even starts. So don't worry about it. We are there to help you. We are there to guide you in the entire process, as always. So GMAT's team will always be there to guide you through the process. So stay tuned for more such videos on GMAT Focus Edition, and we will be bringing them to you live really soon. And please feel free to reach out. I'll be there as well in the description as well. You can get the link for connecting with me The first link that I shared is the link of our website. You can definitely check it out. And the second link which I'm sharing is the link to connect with me. So if you want to discuss with me about how the GMAT Focus Edition affects you, or you want to discuss about the GMAT preparation, feel free to reach out to me on this link, which is available in the chat. All right, guys, all the best. Have a good day ahead. It was great talking to you today.